tell us what we're looking at here. This is game footage from Echoes.
Yeah, so this is the various animals you can play at within Echoes. It's the western horse, ancient bison, the dire wolf, and the saber-tooth cat. It is a massive online multiplayer game on Roblox. We have thousands of players a day, and each server can hold about 100 people. So you can roleplay as all the horses and dire wolves as you want. So it's all about reviving this extinct ecosystem and people just learning about what it's like to live in Ice Age Los Angeles, 20,000 to 50,000 years ago.
There's actually a Labrea Tar Pits in this game, right?
Oh yeah.
There's definitely a Labrea Tar Pits in this game.
Yeah, so the first day that the game was released, about 300 direwolves got stuck in the tar pits that probably made that wall that you see back there, so... Yeah.
These are people who know what the tar pits are. They
Oh, yeah.
know that they're gonna die if they go in, and yet they still went in.
These are human beings who saw tar and decided to die in it.
So I was one of those human beings. I have played this game, and I have managed to die so many ways. I was gored by a peccary, I starved to death, I fell off a cliff, and I thought I could get that piece of meat in the tar pits without getting stuck, and I was wrong.
You just added to the wall.
Yeah, it was really hard to live during the Ice Age in Los Angeles, right? This game does a good job of showing that. In gaming terms, I mean, we talked about me dying multiple times, but this is called a survival game.
Wealth of information that we have at the Tar Pits here today that all of you probably know about. Decades upon decades, even centuries of paleontological research has been conducted at this very place that we're standing right now. And because that's so readily available to us, even online, we were able to reconstruct this ecosystem from the ground up, which was, for instance, what's depicted here is Bologna Creek, which is not even half an hour away from here. And as you can see, it's a herd of bison traveling through this region. And it's not even just the bison. In the corners, you can see a dwarf pronghorn and vultures, which we included in the game as we wanted to include smaller animals as well as the larger ones.
And that's something I really love about Echoes, is it's not just the big predators that you have, like the saber-tooths. You have this loving attention to all the smaller animals, the herbivores, and even the plants. I mean, this is all stuff that you looked into very seriously, the research behind it, and you create this fully fleshed out environment.
Yeah, we actually have a brand new map coming out for the game that is exclusively based on fluvial deposits from the Los Angeles basin. So it's going to be a completely redone map that you can literally like walk through Beverly Hills and see the biomes that are around there and see like the different waterways that would have been here 20,000 years ago.
And I'll just put in a plug. If anyone has not visited our bird station yet, this vulture is there, the modern descendant. So definitely check that out. So you mentioned that you were able to create this whole ecosystem because we have a whole ecosystem of fossils found here at Labrea. We get everything from the biggest Colombian mammoth all the way down to a tiny grain of pollen. So we have a really good idea of all the plants and the animals that are here. We have about 600 species here at the Tar Pits. How many do you have in the game right now? Do you know that off the top of your head? I don't.
I can't say that I do.
There are so many, they don't even know how many are in the game. That's awesome.
There's definitely more being added too, so.
We're constantly adding to our roster of both non-playable characters and playable characters, species rather, that you can explore in game.
And I love that's too, you know, your playable characters, you have like the horse and the bison and things like that. And I would love the pitch, you know, when you were making this game and you go to your investors and you're like, we're gonna go back in time to the tar pits and there'll be vicious saber-tooths there. Like, oh yeah, it's a first-person shooter and you get to hunt the saber-tooths. And it's like, no, you get to be a horse and you're gonna eat grass.
No, I used to be a docent at the Clow Museum in Dallas where I grew up, and there was a brand new paleontology hall that came out in like 2015, and they have like this big Colombian mammoth statue, and there's this hallway behind it. I was a docent and I should have done this, and I don't condone docents doing this. I would literally like canter through the hallways and make horse noises. I was that nerd, so that's part of the reason why I really wanted to help out with the horses on this game.
We've tapped into a real market of people who just want to be horses and run around and neigh all day. This guy's nodding his head here in the front. He knows what we're talking about.
I mean, like, I don't blame them. I mean, I saw Spirit. I get it, okay? Like, yeah.
All right, but I'm just seeing terrestrial animals right now, and we know from our research at the tar pits that It was actually cooler and wetter here, so we had some streams and rivers going through. Where are the fish?
Well, the fish are being added as we're speaking. So coming soon to this new map update, we're actually adding 4 new fish species to the game and a fishing mechanic for all the predators that live there. So you're going to be able to catch a giant sturgeon if you're good enough. So
you heard it here first, folks. Fish and fishing coming soon to Echos Labrea. This is where the drops happen.
Yeah, if you ever really wanted to be a bass master, well, you don't have a bass, but this is your chance. So.
But it'll be harder because you're going to be a saber-tooth, grabbing with your claws, right?
And cats in water, they don't really mix that well, so.
So I should mention, we actually only have one of these fish here, the rainbow trout, in our fossil record because we're upstream, right of the ocean. But how did you decide to put these other species in?
Yeah, as you can probably see, the largest fish that we have here is the green sturgeon. A lot of these animals would likely be in the Los Angeles area when the riverways were larger and more open. And as a result, based on reasonable inference, we've decided to include them in the game for players to observe and even fish.
This is going to make it really cool. We've already got flying things, you've got the animals running around on the ground, and now we've got the fish ecosystem too.
Yeah, we got birds, bugs, and fish. Oh my.
All right, so what I love about Echos Labrea is that it's a great piece of paleo art. And let's define that for our audience here. So paleo art is anything, it can be a painting, it can be like those sculptures behind you that tries to accurately reconstruct some kind of prehistoric life, like we find in the Ice Age. And there are a lot of video games that feature Ice Age animals. So if you play Far Cry or Ark, those both have saber-tooths in them. But the saber-tooths aren't really accurate, right? In Ark, they have a really long tail, and that's something we know is not true based on the skeletons that we find here at Labrea. What responsibility do you think you have as video game creators to add this kind of scientific accuracy?
So paleo art is super important because it directly impacts how the public perceives something. So you might notice in some museums things are outdated. You might not connect with them as much because they don't feel believable. They don't feel based in science or in reality. So a big aspect of paleo art is kind of introducing the concept of an extinct ecosystem to someone who has no idea what they look like. So as a paleo artist, it's super important to be accurate because it's educating people and changing perceptions. I mean, when you look at Jurassic Park, right? People thought scaly velociraptors were normal for 2 decades, right? And now we know they would have been 3 feet long and covered in feathers, and probably you could have drop kicked them and you would have been fine.
It's just not the same when you're trying to run away from something that's basically a turkey, right? But I mean, how many of you think of velociraptors as these big, scaly dinosaurs, right? Give me a show of hands. Yes, lots, right? That is so big in our pop culture. And they've done studies on this. You can have people draw T-Rexes or draw velociraptors, and they basically draw what they see in movies. That bad paleo art extends so long. And so I really appreciate the detail that you put into this game to try to make these not just accurate species, but accurate ecosystems.
And that's largely due to the wealth of information that is here at the Tar Pits. The fact that we have so much information on what the Ice Age was like allows us to immerse ourselves into what the ecosystem is like in a way that is essentially a love letter to the science that is established at this museum.
I mean, we have molting bison and different horse colors and different direwolf colors and all these different representations of animals that could be feasible for the time. You don't really look at a bison skull and think, oh, this could have come in a bunch of different colors because you just think it's like a normal bison. Well, they are bison, but they're primitive bison, they're ancient bison. They're different from nowadays, and we wanted to explore the range of possibilities, basically. So that's why a lot of the game is focused on making sure that we show and explore that possibility in a way that is digestible and so the public understands. That's a big goal.
And I think that's something interesting about the game too, is when you're playing this, it's not a textbook, right? You don't have these word bubbles pop up and say, we know that bison had molting pelts here because they only came at certain times of the year. We find that from the fossil record. This is just something people are absorbing as they play the game. And it's even in the game mechanics and the animations. The saber-tooth have a shear bite, right? They're biting from the side that we know based on the paleontological record. So this is an educational game. Parents, cover your kids' ears. They don't want to hear this. They're actually learning stuff while playing this. They're in this ecosystem living it. And I think more, you talked about the thousands of people that play this game every day, and you go online and there's strategy guides, and there's people doing live recordings of the drops when you add new species, and there's thousands of people watching these things. More people are playing this game than coming to this museum. So I appreciate that, this is an opportunity to reach those people around the world.
The museum is important.
Yeah,
more on the learning aspect of it. As you can probably play as Saber-tooth, a wolf, a bison, or a horse, you really immerse yourself into the niche that each of these animals occupied when they used to live in this ecosystem.
I was just gonna say, imagine how scared that little dwarf pronghorn is. Just every day, there's dire wolves or saber-toothed cats. Like, imagine living like that, just being hyperactive. I mean, maybe I could because I am anxious as hell. But like, that's the point of the game, is to understand like what it was like to be in the niche of whatever animal you're playing as, and that's important because that's applicable to modern day ecosystems and like understanding how we and the world changes how they are and how their lives are.
So let's dive into the details of some of these species that you reconstructed. So Adi, tell us what we're looking at here.
So you're seeing a coalition of saber-toothed cats fighting a family of saber-toothed cats over a dead bison.
That's quite a mouthful. A coalition of saber-toothed cats fighting another coalition over a dead bison.
That's correct, Ben.
And we know that saber-tooths probably lived in groups like this, based on research done here at the Tar Pits. You can read about it. You go back to the right of the lab over there. We have healed saber-tooth bones of adults that show that they probably lived in some kind of a pride or a pack, based on their brain size, other things like that.
Yeah, and essentially we've tried to represent that in game, where you can form groups as wolves, as bison, and other herding animals. And as you probably notice, each of the saber-toothed cats come in different colors and patterns. The one front and center is melanistic, as you can probably tell.
Yeah, so melanin or melanistic, if you've never heard this word, that's the dark part of our skin. So if you have freckles, if you have darker skin, that's the melanin, this pigment inside us that gives us that a brown or a black color.
Yeah, if you have a black house cat, it's kind of the very similar mutation, and that's kind of the point here, is that like every single animal has a plethora of mutations that they can have. For instance, if you see that orange one in the corner, it's called erythristic, and that means they focus on orange color, and it's also the same thing that makes your blood red. So,
yeah, and I really like this, that we're providing a range of different skins. So this is a cool in-game mechanic, right? You want to get the latest skin, you want to level up to that. But this also is a good paleoart example, because we don't know exactly what these animals look like. So it's good to have some uncertainty in how we're displaying them. We show them in a couple different ways. That helps us understand more. We can see maybe a black saber-tooth or a brown saber-tooth and say, yes, that's a correct saber-tooth. There's not one right way. But also, every animal living around today has natural variation. So we expect a range of different coat colors and things like that. But what about, they all have kind of this dappled or this spotting like a leopard or a jaguar would have. What about that?
So you might have noticed in earlier paintings, if you're familiar, like Charles Knight and other early forms of paleoart, saber-toothed cats are depicted with a very plain, lion-like coat almost. As our science at the Tar Pits has advanced, we've been able to tell that a lot of the environment wasn't very open at times. It was also very forested. And spots are a natural form of camouflage for a lot of cats today. So we opted to give the cat, based on stuff like jaguars and ocelots and bobcats, a spotted coat.
Yeah, that's how we've reconstructed it here at the Tar Pits too, in the newer stuff. If you go and look at the frieze that's around the outside of the top of the museum, that's based on a Charles Knight painting from 1925. So that's when it shows them being more like lions, more of a tan color. Now, Adi, you are also the sound designer for this game. And I think, okay, maybe we can look at modern cats and see what they might have looked like, but I think a lot of people would say, how could we possibly know what an extinct species would sound like, right? But we've actually done research here at the Tar Pits. How did you figure out how to make these animals sound the way they do?
That's an excellent question, then. So I have a question for the audience. How many of you, show of hands, own a cat? Perfect.
Wow, this is a big cat
Huge
crowd.
cat fans here. So as you probably know, cats are purring cats. You hear them all the time. There's purring cats and roaring cats. a recent study in 2023.
And so purring cats are your house cat and kind of the small cats of the world, right? So up to mountain lion. That's about as big as they get. And then we have the roaring cats. Those are tigers, leopards, lions, things like that. I see a lot of cat fans out in the audience. Definitely check out our exhibit at the Natural History Museum, Fierce, the Story of Cats, if you haven't yet. Your cat can even be a star. Take a picture of it, and it will be in the exhibit. So those are the two branches of cats we have.
Yeah, essentially, in 2023, there was a study that looked into the hyoid bones of the Smilodon.
Yeah, and these are bones that actually attach to your tongue. A lot of people probably don't realize that your tongue hooks onto a bone, but they're right in your neck right here. And they're super fragile, so they only preserve very, very rarely in fossils. But we have lots of hyoids here at the tar pits because our preservation is so good.
Yeah, and essentially, it was previously thought that, like lions and tigers, Smilodon might have roared like them. But studying these hyoid bones, they suggested the shape of these bones are actually closer to purring cats, like your cats today, or mountain lions, ocelots, what have you.
So let's listen to the sounds that you came up with for the mountain lion, and maybe you can describe them a little bit for us as we're hearing. Where did you draw these sounds from?
These were essentially borrowed from sound files that I found online of mountain lions and ocelots, because they had that low bass sound that apparently Smilodon might have made as well, based on these studies.
This is another cool thing about the game is you can actually control how you're signaling as an animal, right? So if you want to roar, if you want to neigh, you want to attract other, we would say conspecifics, other animals from the same species to you, or away from you, right?
So one of our other animators, Bav, she is a big cat girl, and so she referenced a bunch of different like tigers, lions, mountain lions, just focused on their behavior. So a big focus on localization in this game is kind of emoting how that cat would have emoted. And all those different vocalizations mean something to the community. If you played the game, you're kind of brain-rotted enough to know what they mean. But it's very important to gameplay, because especially if you're like walking around in the wilderness and there's another saber-tooth and you don't know if it's going to kill you or steal your food, you need to kind of emote so that other cat knows how to react and you know how to proceed forward as well.
I would be very scared if I heard those noises, playing the game or just walking around town. So another thing that I really love about the game is you give real starring roles to the herbivores. And so, the horses are a fun, playable character, and they come in all these different coats. And I know you are a super horse fan. So tell me more about the science behind these horses.
So I'm a horse girl. I've been riding since I was 5 years old. So specifically when it comes to Equospheres, we actually have quite a lot of research published about what they would have looked like. So this is Equospheres occidentalis, which is the western horse that you see right over there behind us. We know that they would have come in bay dun, which is like, Spirit, he's a bay dun horse, and that's what that guy's very back is. But we also know horses that are bay dun could be bay, which is without that sort of dilution that makes them dun. So this is a bay horse, and then we know horses can come in black, and then also the dilute of black, which is called Brea, which is that quarter horse right there. Recently, in 2021, we actually found out that leopard Appaloosa horses existed. It's called the leopard complex. There's actually paintings in France from Paleolithic times of leopard-spotted horses in this place called Pecmurl. I'm not pronouncing that correctly, I'm not French, I'm sorry. But they actually have cave paintings by people like 20 to 30,000 years ago of these horses being leopard-spotted. So when I joined the game, I really wanted to make sure that we show the full array of colors that horses could come in, just because I feel like a lot of the times people just assume prehistoric horses are like zebras, or they're like just made on like the modern day Przewalski horse, which is a very close relative to the horses in Echos. But we know they came in so many different colors. There's genetic testing of their bone beds that show that they came in all these different colors. And we have literal paleo art from people thousands of years ago that show that, like your Appaloosa horse that you rode at horse camp when you were 5 years old, yeah, that's a prehistoric horse right there. And I think that was really important to show. And so one of our upcoming skits for the game is going to be the leopard complex horse right here. So
I just feel like this horse would get eaten by a saber-tooth
Oh,
really
absolutely.
quickly, right?
Yeah.
This does not look like good camouflage where it's standing.
Yeah, but then when you're in Eurasia, when you're in the mountain steppes, it's kind of thought that this snowy environment, the rocky, craggy environment, it was very beneficial, because if you even look at like a modern day Appaloosa in the snow and wherever you are, they do blend in. Like they're near white, and then there's also variants of leopard complex where they can be a little bit less white, or they can have more spots. And it just shows that like they really did adapt to the environment they're in. And we don't really know for sure if they would have been leopard complex in Labrea, because it was kind of like a wetland environment. It wasn't really snowy ever, even though it was the Ice Age. But we wanted to represent the full spectrum, because they are basically migrant horses from Eurasia, and they could have come in any of those colors. And we wanted to show like they could be any of, like, we don't know, but we do know that they had this possibility.
Yeah, and horses are such a cool case for paleo art, because a lot of these other species, you know, like saber-toothed cats, we're making reasonable guesses based on the kind of animals that are around today. But we know so much about horses, and we just haven't applied that yet to the horses that are at Labrea or in North America. So as Cam was saying, you know, we have cave art in Europe of horses, where they painted multiple different colors and coat patterns, so we know what they look like there. We have really good genetics on horses all around the world, because people love horses and horse breeding today. So we know exactly what kind of DNA translates into a coat color like this. And then we even find frozen horses, right? Up in Alaska and Siberia, a whole horse with all its skin still on. The problem is, a lot of this research has been done on European horses, Asian horses, and we haven't taken the DNA yet of North American horses, like the ones in Labrea, and really seen what colors they are. So I'm hoping some future scientist is out there in the audience and decides that this is a cool research project and goes with it, because then we can narrow this down. Because we know the horses came from Asia over the Bering Land Bridge and made it down to Labrea, but we don't know exactly, you know, what style came over, what color pattern. So I'd like, again, that you're representing a whole range, because that gives us the variability that we're dealing with here.
Yeah, and we know that like early peoples also love, they basically domesticated those horses, they bred them to be spotted, they bred them that like mutated all those different colors that we know today, those chestnuts, those pintos, those tobianos, and we know that it's crazy, because you don't look at an Appaloosa and you think, oh, that horse, we made that. Like you look at dogs, you look at cats, you look at all the different colors they come in. You don't really think that that was a possible natural thing. But with horses, we actually know for a fact that it definitely was.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at a Chihuahua or something, you're like, that is a really messed up wolf. There's no way that happened by itself. We actually have domestic dogs at Labrea Tar Pits, right? Some of the first Paleo-Indians who came over here brought dogs with them, and one of them wound up in the tar pits. So I'm afraid we just have time for one last question, and I'm gonna ask the question that's on everyone's mind. When are we gonna get to play as mammoths?
Very, very soon. So I worked on this design for the Columbia Mammoth with my friend AJ, who modeled it, and it's heavily based on Asian elephants. And yeah, this guy has been a hyper fixation of mine for the last year and a half. So he's coming very, very soon.
You may also notice that it's furrier than your typical Colombian mammoth, like the beautiful model that we have over there. That's actually based on preserved hair that we found in California at a ranch. And after extensive research, looking at various examples of Asian elephants that are furrier, on the furrier side, we decided to depict it in a novel way of giving it a beautiful coat.
And this is only one of the 3 upcoming playables that we're working on right now, but the other 2 you're just gonna have to keep guessing.
So I will end it there with another major drop of huge importance for the Echos Labrea community. Yes. And I will be happy to take questions from the audience.
In the Discord server, there was talk about predator versus predator combat. Was the render earlier of the saber-tooth fighting, is that what it's going to look like at all in game?
I think the question was, you've talked about predator versus predator combat coming in the game. Was that render of the saber-tooth fighting? Is that what it's going to look like?
Currently, we're still working on predator combat. Essentially, you can fight a dire wolf as a saber-tooth, fight a saber-tooth as a dire wolf, etc. That is essentially just a rendered image where we pose the models, like Bavelli posed the models in that fashion. So that is not representative of what the gameplay would actually look like. But we're still currently working on it.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions?
Environmental hazards such as earthquakes into the game.
Environmental hazards like earthquake. I mean, you already have rain, right? There are seasons. It's realistic in that regard. But what other hazards?
Yeah, we have flooding at the moment, but not planned at the moment to have environmental hazards like that. But I mean, that's not a bad idea. So.
Any other questions? Don't be shy.
Oh, I have a friend who just wants to know the state of emotes in the game beyond vocalizations, like for example, Direwolves play Valley. So what's going on there? What's the plans for that?
So our animator Radley is currently working on the direwolf emotes, and then I am currently working on the bison emotes. And yeah, we're gonna have a big emote update where all the playables are gonna get emotes at the same time. So that is the plan at the moment.
We have another question back here.
Quick question about timeline. Is there a chance in the future of the game that you are going to have the ability to fast forward in time to play as a paleontologist and going back and excavating?
I think what I heard is, can you play as a paleontologist and go back?
Yeah, not
Time travel.
Excavating. You can excavate what you've already, fallen into the target.
So we do have fossils planned in the game to be found. It is going to be kind of like you're going to be an animal. You're not going to be as a human, but you're going to be able to find fossils in the game that are based on fossils found in California. But we don't have plans to add humans at the moment.
If you want to go back to the ancient ice age and play as a horse, go to Echoes Labrea. If you want to be a paleontologist and dig up fossils, come to the real Labrea Tar Pits.
Volunteer.
Yeah.
Do we have any other questions?
So just curious about your opinion as a paleontologist about the revival of the direwolf, since direwolf is a trend.
Yeah, this has been the big story here. Scientist, my career. It's really interesting genetic work, and I think it will actually help us a lot on species that are not extinct yet. So like Galapagos tortoises, things like that, where we've already started using that cloning technology to increase the genetic diversity and help those species survive extinction. What they created as the quote-unquote dire wolf, it's really a gray wolf with a couple genes that are changed. Like, that's still amazing science. I just don't think they can say we brought back the dire wolf, period. It's now not extinct, because there's only 3 of them too, right? If those 3 dire wolves, if those 3 wolves die, then the species goes extinct again. So if you go back to our lab, we have the mandible, the jawbone of the last known real dire wolf. So definitely check that out.
Thank you. We also had a talk at the Natural History Museum maybe a month or 2 ago about the dire wolf and this story, and it was recorded, and you can see that on YouTube if you're interested in learning more. Do we have any other questions? Yeah, one right here.
Will the coastal environment ever be built upon? Because I know that there are sea lions in the edge of the map, and there's also going to be the whale carcasses that appears in the map update.
Yeah, so that's going to be a part of the brand new map that we're going to have. There's going to be a beached whale carcass that you can scavenge from. At the moment, people that play Echoes know that we're adding a turkey vulture update, and let's just say in the beached whales there are a lot of vultures there. But yeah, so that's going to be a part of the new coastal biome of the new map. But it is going to be a brand new map separate from the current one, including the, if you're on our Discord, there's the redwood biome, all those different biomes that we've been teasing. We've actually been very cheekily teasing for the last few months. That's all a part of the new map that is going to be added very soon. So.
And the new map is very much more accurate than the current one, based on what Los Angeles looked like from the coast all the way up to the mountain range that surrounds the valley.
Yeah, our developers Sean and Zach, they've been very on top of making sure that the environment, the biomes, is as accurate to Labrea as possible. So.
Great. Well, I see no more hands, but no worries. Like I mentioned, they're going to hang out a little bit longer, so if you'd like to come up to them and ask